For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard, we will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30-odd minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Hey! Greetings from the mothership. It's great to have you here live on 30-odd minutes. If you're watching us on the website, you can jump in our chat room, you can interact with us, and we have to say hi to the Oddball crew who are in the engine room. How are you guys tonight? Yay! Hi. Good to see you. How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Squatchy.
Really?
What's squatchy?
Squatchy. That's a weird adjective because
That feels really good today.
well, tonight's not a Sasquatch show. Tonight we've hovered the mothership right above Earth, as you can see behind us. We're talking about alien abductions. It's going to be a very interesting program, and you know, we want to get you guys involved, and you're going to hear from some of our viewers tonight. Also, email us at info@30oddminutes.com, and you did. We did get an email this week. Sarah, please.
Yes, we did. It says, "Hey, oddballs, I saw on Twitter that you guys are attempting another alien show tonight. What are the chances you'll make it through without technical difficulties?" From Ken. And he asks this because why every
UFO show we have goes down the drain.
Yeah.
Horribly.
It's
Cross your
weird.
fingers. So far.
Go to the archives
we're
if you
doing
don't
good.
believe us.
It is weird. Every alien or UFO show we have done has had strange technical difficulties in the past, and we're going to try our best to get through it tonight. You never know. One of the things we've been asking you forever and ever is send us your field reports. And, you know, Dave, you did. Check this one out.
Hey, oddballs. I'm here in Iceland, and supposedly they have a lot of elves and trolls, or hidden people, as it were. So, thought I'd do a field report and see if I could... Oh my god, I see one. Let's see if I can catch him. There he is. Got him. Okay. Got the elf. So I'm going to put him in this magic little pouch here. Right, like so. And I'll tie it up good and tight. Bring him back to the United States for you guys. Proof positive that elves exist.
Huh, weird. And here's the pouch, and... Dude, it's not an elf, it's a gnome. Oh. We send you to Iceland for one simple thing. It's a gnome. Forget it.
He's got to go back.
Thank you for that. Send us your weird stories. We appreciate it.
Now we got to feed it.
Now we
got to deal with fish and wildlife.
You know, seriously, that came from Iceland, which makes it kind of cool. So good stuff. Okay, alien abductions, it's something we talk about a lot. We think about it a lot. And we also, so does our Dr. Dreck. He thinks about it too. This is what he had to say.
Hello, oddballs. Yes, it's me, Dr. Dreck. Had a little mishap in the lab. We had one of those Roswell aliens in deep freeze back there, and I wanted to see what would happen if I did some gene splicing of my DNA and the alien's DNA, and, well, something went wrong. I thought I'd get all the alien's intelligence absorbed into my brain, but instead I look like him. It should have worked. I don't know why it...
Place where even the most enlightened person can be lost in the darkness, because no matter which way the ship is headed, it's about to enter the Twilight Zone.
I should have known. Nothing ever works out right when Rod Serling's around. Get out of here, Rod. I gotta get back to normal. Go bother Justin Bieber.
He's having a rough time in that lab.
Yeah.
He needs adult supervision. But
Turn
there's
the
no
fume
adults around
hoods
here.
on.
Dr. Dreck is our mad scientist. Matt Moniz is our downright angry scientist. So good to have him with us.
Damn right.
All right. Totally damn right. All right, here's the thing. Let's talk about this big subject. To think we're alone in the universe is completely absurd. But the big question is, does intelligent life cross great distances just to check us out here on Earth? That one makes us scratch our heads. Sure, we're interesting creatures, us humans. Of course we are. But are we that interesting? For many years now, everyday people have been discussing their encounters with unidentified flying objects, UFOs. Seeing a flying saucer in the sky is one thing, but being abducted and taken aboard a craft is quite another. Our first guest tonight says she was abducted as a child and has since experienced multiple UFO sightings. Here to tell us about her experience, please welcome Sarah LaBrie. Sarah,
Hey,
how are you?
good. How are you guys?
We're good. Thank you for coming on and doing this and sharing your story with us. We appreciate it. So can you just take us back? You're a young girl, and what happened?
I was about 10 years old, and of course, I always had dreams about aliens, but this was definitely not a dream. Woke up, it was like completely real life. I could feel the cold metal table under me. I was strapped to a metal table. I remember the walls were white, a bright light above me, and there was nothing around me when I first woke up. And I looked to my right, and there was a boy, looked like the same age as me, strapped to another table, like 6 or 7 feet away. And after a moment of like me looking around, 3 aliens came up to my table, and they like hovered over me, and there was a flash of bright light, and I woke up. And I was back in my bed, but I noticed a pain down my chest. So I looked, and there was a scar, like 3 or 4 inch scar down my chest that was never there before. So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and, I mean, did you tell your family about this when it happened, or anybody else?
Yeah, no, I definitely told my parents.
And what'd they say?
My mom, of course, tried to excuse anything she could. Oh, it was probably from the cat or whatever, but it obviously wasn't a scratch, it was a scar.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Now, you told me in your email that you've had multiple sightings since then. Now, you were age 10. We've got a picture of young Sarah here. There she was as a kid. Are you... how embarrassing, isn't it?
Right.
So, we've got this photo of... There she is. Ah, look at that. And so, I mean, since that happened, you said you've had 3 other sightings. Tell us quickly about those.
Yep. The first sighting was... I believe it was in Florida. I was with some family, and we saw, 3 metal discs flying. They were like darting. They'd fly and stop, and then fly somewhere else and stop. And they just did that for a couple minutes, and then they were gone. The second one was at my house in Vermont, and my brothers also saw it. And again, it was a silver disc that came really, really low over the house and hovered for a minute and then took off. The third one was in New York. I saw it with my ex, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We were out on the water, and there's this big flash of light, and this saucer came out, and it had like spinning lights around it.
Right.
And it flew really, really, really slowly in front of us and stopped. It just hovered there for a while. And the lights were still spinning, and then it took off like faster than I've ever seen. There's another flash, and then it was gone. It was pretty crazy.
But there was no other abductions since roughly age 10, correct?
That I remember.
Now, has this affected you in any way since then? I mean, have you had emotional issues or health issues?
It's been very emotional for me.
Okay.
Watching alien movies, especially any kind of image I get, it brings back a lot of emotion, and it's really hard for me to deal with.
And I mean, do you worry it's going to happen again? Do you think it's behind you? I mean...
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I try to block it out as much as I can.
Right.
It was definitely, it scarred me for sure.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you sharing this with us. We're going to have another guest on in a moment, Sarah Harmon, who's going to talk to us about the work she's done regressing people who are abductees, kind of confronting this issue. So thank you for sharing this, Sarah. We really appreciate it. All right. Sarah LaBrie, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Matt, let me ask you this. Matt's our own in-house ufologist. Matt, what do you think? Does this sound like a common story when you're dealing with abductees?
Well, a lot of the things that you talked about are found throughout not just the literature, but when you work in the subject firsthand. Yeah, it starts at a very early age. You wind up with these vivid memories and dreams. And what makes them really stand out is that the details remain crisp at the time that they happened, and still just as crisp years and even decades later. They were still can remember very specific little points and details, which I'm sure that anybody that's had a severe experience, if you talk to war veterans, they'll tell you something very similar about being in a particular battle and remembering very specific little minutia details as the events are happening around them. And this happens continuously with the abductees. And now the other thing about abductions is they happen throughout a lifetime. They don't happen just like once and stop. Generally it starts from a young age and continues on into adulthood. And seeing UFOs outside of just not being abducted is also another classic hallmark.
Interesting. So this is something that happens to, I mean, we know Sarah is not alone, of course. And in fact, sometimes it makes the news. Very recently, just about a week ago, Fran Drescher, actor from The Nanny, that we know her best, and she's been on several shows since. Here she is, of course, Fran Drescher. She comes out and she says, as a child in middle school, she was abducted by aliens, and as was her husband, Peter Mark Jacobson. Both of them claim they have a scar and had some kind of experience. Now, here's what's so interesting about Fran Drescher's story. This story came out, and she was pretty well ridiculed in the media. And what I thought was interesting, and one of the things we wanted to talk about tonight, is when a celebrity comes out and says, hey, my house is haunted, it's kind of interesting. The media says, oh, that's intriguing, that's cool. And they're not mocked so much. Some of them do, but for the most part, it's just kind of interesting. And Fran Drescher was just brutally mocked for saying she was an abductee. Matt, you thought she was kind of brave for stepping forward.
That takes a lot of guts. It takes an awful lot of guts. Now, I knew about her story years ago because that's the type of stories that I would investigate and focused on were couples research, where people are basically taken and introduced to each other and then meet later on in what we call stark reality, and they're able to divulge crystal clear details about the experience that they both happened, never having met before, and then finally later meeting on. And in quite a few cases, they actually, if they wind up being mated pairs in some cases. In a lot of cases.
And she claims that this both happened to her, she and her husband, and they did get together. So intriguing stuff. Okay, here's the thing. We said earlier we do have another guest tonight, and for people that go through this, it's a very repressed memory. Some people remember great details. We've had Travis Walton on our show in the past, of course, famous for the Fire in the Sky story, made into a movie, books, and everything else. Really compelling. He didn't recall at first all of his experiences, but it kind of came back. Over time, over days, weeks, months, and years, all those memories of being aboard that ship and missing for a few days came back to him. So tonight, our next guest tonight is Sarah Harmon. Sarah, tell us about regressing people that have gone through an experience like this through hypnosis.
Absolutely. I think it starts with a lot of clients that come forward and they have a lot of, even what your previous guest kind of showed, which is anxiety. They have a lot of emotional attachment that it makes it very difficult for them to function. And they also kind of have, that exiled feeling and paranoia that they're going to have an encounter again, and they want to know how to cope and how to deal with it. A lot of people feel very scared, very fearful, and it's something that they want to try and be preventative and proactive about. As a hypnotherapist, it's kind of interesting. Obviously I have experience in that realm, and there's a reason I went down that path for alternative therapy, but you have to remain neutral. You have to be very, very delicate not to be suggestive. It's also something that you have to kind of learn what that particular client's coping skills are and try and regress them without creating any more fearful memories. Some people regress things that they don't remember the full experience, and it can be really traumatizing to bring that to the surface. Right. Other people, just like your ufologist said, it's very, very, very crisp. They even have things like PTSD, where they're having flashes throughout the day and anxiety that makes it very difficult to function on a daily basis.
Sure.
So it kind of depends on the person.
And I got to believe that an experience like this has to be something like if someone's been abducted in real life, kidnapped, gone through an experience like that, but worse, because you understand the motivations of another human being. They want money, they want to hurt you or whatever. but an alien craft. I mean, who knows? Who knows what could be going on?
Absolutely. And I think what even creates that more fearful experience for people is, just like you said, you're out of an environment that you're familiar with at all. I mean, you're off of the planet, so how much more alien can you be? But then you find yourself in a situation where you can't empathize with these creatures. There's no communication, and you don't know if they're going to come back. You don't know if it's going to be reoccurring. And a lot of people, very similar to what your first guest said about having some kind of a infliction or a scar or something that's left behind in the physical. So when they wake up, they want to believe that it's a really bad dream, but there's just something that leaves them emotionally attached and something they can't explain physically that makes it very, very real. And so they're always wondering, is this going to, is something implanted in me? Because that reoccurring theme of being on a medical examination table, or, having things as far as, the different organs being kind of messed with, and it makes you very scared because you don't know where their technology is. And, if it's something you can go to the doctor and get fixed, it makes you feel very uncomfortable in a lot of different ways. And it's something, they take you from your home, while you're sleeping. Right. And there's no defense or offense against it. So it can be really, really difficult for people to try and remember that and to cope with it and to deal with it.
Absolutely. And so here's the thing. Alien abduction stories, contact with alien species, that's something that's been around quite a while. In fact, a little blip made the news recently, and our own Andrew Lake is reporting. Andrew?
Writer, researcher, and former government consultant Timothy Good made claims during an interview with the BBC that President Dwight D. Eisenhower met with extraterrestrial beings in 1954. Good said that the 34th President of the United States attended 3 secret meetings. One of those was at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, and reportedly there were many witnesses. All communication between President Eisenhower and the aliens was supposedly conducted through mental telepathy. According to Good, 2 different types of alien races made offers to the American leader: a tall, blonde, Nordic-like race and the infamous Greys. The Greys' offer was said to have been the one accepted. It's interesting to note that President Eisenhower was known to have believed in the existence of life on other worlds, and he was also one of the first men to push for a manned mission to the moon. Oh yeah, like that photo's not fake. Back to you, Jeff.
What? That photo's totally real. All right, thank you, Andrew, for that report. Matt, Andrew, this did make the news recently, where an author and researcher claimed that Eisenhower had secret meetings with aliens. To what end? To what end do you think that they could be negotiating anything? Matt, Sarah,
what? Wow.
Andrew, go.
Well, I think it's also prior to back up a bit. It's interesting that last year there was a story that Winston Churchill was given a report about UFOs over the English Channel during the Second World War, and had a conference supposedly with Eisenhower on this. So, I mean, you hear governments, military men involved with aliens. I'm thinking they're talking about weapons of mass destruction or control or something. But it's spooky to think of.
Yeah. Well, take us to your leader, right? Go ahead, Matt, please. Matt.
Well, I'm reminded of the book as well as the movie Alternative 3. That is actually the impetus for part of that movie and book, because it is said that Eisenhower actually did encounter these beings on Holloman Air Force Base. Now, this has been reported for a number of years and by a number of different people. As a matter of fact, the famous case of Lonnie Zamora in New Mexico happened the day before, and it was said that that was a precursor landing to the landing at Holloman to make sure that they were going to have, quote-unquote, the right coordinates.
He even reported them looking like tall, Nordic-looking people.
No, small, gray people.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got that right.
Lonnie Zamora, yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, that the same shapes and figures come up again and again. The Greys that have become so familiar to everybody, and the other figures that we've talked about before. There's really several kinds of close encounters that you've heard about. I think a lot of us know about Close Encounters of the Third Kind, thanks to the famous movie. But a quick breakdown: Close Encounters of the First Kind means someone sees a UFO, an unidentified flying object, and that's it. There's no interaction of any kind. It's just a sighting. Close encounters of the second kind involve some kind of interaction, like maybe you felt the wind from the ship, heat blast, something like that. And then, of course, third kind means seeing extraterrestrials, seeing creatures in the ship, on the ground, or whatever. And then tonight we're really talking about close encounters of the fourth kind, which is an abduction. And from there's actually people that take it, am I right, Matt, to the fifth and sixth and seventh. But for all intents and purposes, once you've been abducted, the fifth and sixth probably are semantics at that point. So these things have been categorized. They've been used by MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, to describe various sightings. And they've been in use for years because obviously lots and lots of people are having these experiences that fall into one of these categories. Matt, I mean, how common do you think this is, Matt Moniz?
There were reports that saying 1 in every 100 person has supposedly been abducted. Now, I think that number is a bit inflated. I think the real case is that it's 10 times that, if not more. But there are real legitimate cases where abduction does happen. I mean, if you take the individual story where, had this happen and I'm just an individual, and take that story, you can say that person possibly has a mental condition. But when you have another person saying, this has happened to me, and the husband is witnessing this, the kids, and happening right in front of the entire family, is one case I know of, over a dozen people watched this person get abducted. Right. It takes it out of the realm of, some sort of psychology. That something's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Sarah Harmon, let's get back to you. Tell us about an experience with one of your clients, something profound, an example. I know you can't name names, and we don't want you to do that, but give us an example of what some of these people are going through that come to you.
Gosh, very similar to what you said, having the close encounters of the different kind. A lot of what I deal with is the fourth kind, people that have an intimate connection of some kind that are typically taken from their home. And there's a lot of reoccurring themes where they seem to start at a young age where, it's a kind of a dream-related thing. For me, there has been one particular client in particular that I've worked with, and he's really come a long way in coping because it started as a dream. It started as this belief that he was being abducted from his home, and he was a very intelligent man. It was very against his spiritual and religious beliefs to kind of fall victim to this alien abduction, what he called, hoopla, and he really didn't want to believe it. But after having these sightings and strange phenomenon happen in his home, and things that were happening during waking hours as well as while he was asleep, he realized, rather than try and fight it, he wanted to really learn what it was about and see if it was projection or if it was a false memory, or he was trying to be very logical and rational about it. So we started doing hypnotherapy regressions for him and trying to remain really neutral and just see if we could get more and more detail brought to the surface. And he has just as many experiences throughout the day in his waking hours as he does and can recall for nighttime dreams, which was kind of interesting. And it ends up being a common thing that you can get abducted at any point in time, and it's almost like a glitch in the matrix where people find themselves having deja vu, or they all of a sudden have this memory that they don't remember having. Him in particular, he would be looking into his TV and he would have this strange sensation come over his body, and he knew at that point something was trying to make contact, and he was very anxious to do anything like drive his car or be in a conversation with somebody. He would kind of recluse into his bedroom, and later that day he would try and reflect back on the afternoon, and he would remember having a conversation with some sort of a being, and it was typically the same kind of being. So, there's a gray area between doing alien abduction regression and helping a person cope with it. Then when you really start going down the rabbit hole and dealing with people that have close encounters all the time, it's not just maybe a one-time traumatic experience, but something that they find through regression, and when they bring things to the surface, that it's happening over and over and over again. So
okay.
Go ahead.
No. Quick question. So do you ever go down the rabbit hole with a client and you realize, well, actually, I don't think there was an abduction here. I think this is some kind of trumped up memory, maybe some very natural, horrible experience, like maybe someone was raped, God forbid, or abused in some way, and they've rewired their brain. I mean, can you tell the difference?
Yeah, I mean, typically you can. And a lot of it, when you're dealing with someone, especially under hypnosis, you can ask questions and things like, well, tell me how you feel about that, or how does that relate to your present day life? Or does this image of the alien represent anyone else in your life? And even though you'll lie, when you're awake, you'll lie, under hypnosis as well, but it's really a lot easier to see that behavior. You can see a person's response, and people will have a really in-depth emotional response to something that's a very true experience for them. And sometimes it does end up being an alien abduction encounter full of a lot of anxiety that when we say, what does this represent for you today, that it ends up being, a rape experience or an abduction experience from, something that they couldn't deal with when they were young. And we have a lot of different things that we work with, like false memory syndrome or attention-seeking behavior, where people actually, maybe they see a movie and they make and kind of exaggerate something in their own head. It's different for everybody, but typically when you're dealing with an alien abduction regression that is something that it really has kind of that authentic feel to it, there's reoccurring themes and there's emotional attachments that as you work through with the client, it becomes pretty apparent that this isn't something that they're creating or projecting.
Sure. No, understood. We keep a psychotherapist in the mothership at all times, and that's of course our own Sarah here. Yeah. Sarah, tell me, do you think hypnosis can be trusted? Our Sarah, sorry. There's a lot of Sarahs tonight.
No, it's a clan.
I'll share Sarah all the time.
Yeah. So Sarah, can we trust hypnosis?
Is hypnosis a credible way of getting information? Absolutely. But I caution that it's got to be done by someone who's been well trained. I know I've met Sarah. Just listening to her talk, I mean, it sounds like not only has she been trained the proper way, but also she knows a lot about it from a psychological standpoint. And I would say that's the thing that you have to take precautions about, particularly with this population, is that you are going to deal with a bunch of people. Not all of them are going to be authentic. They might really feel that they have an abduction story, but you need to be able to have the training to kind of filter through that, where someone might just be traumatized and they've put it into an abduction story to make sense of it, or there might be someone that's truly psychotic. You can usually pick those out if you're any sort of psychologically trained professional. So if you're going to work with abductees, I would caution that you know what you're talking about so that you can actually handle that population. But hypnosis, absolutely. I mean, it is a legit science if it's done properly.
So real quick, if a client comes to you and says, I know you're a psychotherapist, I think I've been abducted by an alien, what would you tell them? Our Sarah.
Me?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, would you refer them to someone else or would you deal with it?
I probably would look for someone. I would consult with people that I know, that I would trust. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert by any means, but I do feel I have the clinical background and the skills to do that, yes. Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. All right.
She's got skills.
She does. Sarah Harmon, we're almost near the end of the show, but real quick, so you think this is legit? Is this is happening to people? They are being abducted, taken from our planet, and you feel this is happening to some percentage of our population?
Absolutely. I'm definitely of the belief of being open-minded, and it's hard for me to believe in coincidence. I don't know how many coincidences make a fact. So for that reason, there's absolutely a need for alternative therapy. And just with my experience, some of the stories are too profound and too amazing to deny. There's definitely something else out there.
Right.
What exactly, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. That's the mystery for all of us. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will have links to your website from ours. And this is a topic we've explored before. We will explore it again because it's so intriguing. There must be life out there in the universe. There has to be. It's ridiculous to think otherwise. Is it coming here? And if it's coming here, is it observing us? And of course, we think if we were advanced enough to get to another planet where people were, millennia behind us in technology, what would we do? Would we leave them alone? Hell no, we wouldn't leave them alone because humans have never left anything alone. We've meddled in everything we've ever found. So do they. Until next time, folks, stay hot.